When today is unpredictable, you need sound advice and strong support to help you stay focused on your long-term financial goals for tomorrow. Together with an advisor from Rise Private Wealth Management, formerly Pell Wealth Partners, a private wealth advisor practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, you can plan your future while navigating your now. Ameriprise Financial has been guiding clients through challenging times for 130 years. You can take comfort in working with a financial advisor who's backed by that strong experience and who's there to guide you with personalized, goal-based financial advice. Call Rise Private Wealth Management today at 914-253-8800. That's 914-253-8800. Office is located at 800 Westchester Avenue, Suite 300 in Rybrook, New York, and 300 East 40th Street, New York City. Not FDIC or NCUA insured. No financial institution guarantee. May lose value. Securities offered by Ameriprise Financial Services, LLC. Member FINRA and SIPC. Welcome to Leadership Unleashed, the show that will explore the multifaceted world of leadership through insightful interviews, thought-provoking discussions, and practical advice from leaders throughout Westchester County and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Marsha Gordon, President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester. On today's episode of Leadership Unleashed, we're thrilled to welcome Valerie M. Grubb, keynote speaker, executive coach, and people development leader. Valerie helped launch Oxygen for Oprah and IAC for Barry Diller, and she's led high-performance teams at NBC Universal and Rolls-Royce. Now she partners with companies and associations to transform leadership potential into measurable performance that impacts the bottom line. From navigating multi-generational teams to building accountability under pressure, Valerie brings a wealth of experience and strategies that drive real results. And we have been privileged to hear Valerie speak at the Business Council of Westchester this morning and this afternoon, and now to the entire world on this episode of BCW Podcast Network, Leadership Unleashed, sponsored by Westchester Medical Center. Valerie, welcome to Leadership Unleashed. We're thrilled to have you here today.
And I'm excited to be here. I always love talking about leadership, so it's a real delight to be here.
So let me ask you, when you look at today's workforce, at today's workplace, what do you see as the biggest shifts shaping the future of work?
I think, the welcoming Gen Z in, like Gen Z millennials, that in a couple years, they're going to be 2/3 of the workforce. And that's a different mindset. And so I always love to tell leaders or, company owners, if you were struggling with millennials coming in, welcome Gen Z's right there. So certainly, I think that's something to keep in mind, that you're going to have a much younger workforce with very different ideas. I couldn't think about the future of work without talking about AI, right?
Right,
Everybody's
of course.
sick
Yes.
of hearing about AI. But it's really rewriting job roles, really rewriting the demand for skill sets that we need from our employees. And I think one other thing that I would bring up is gig and contract work, because
that's amazing. That's really growing in our economy. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're at 36% today, primarily driven by Gen Z.
36%?
And guess what? By 2027, which is pretty much tomorrow,
yes,
right? It's projected to be over 50%. So this
and
workforce...
just so people understand what gig and contract work means.
That means these aren't folks who are on your books W-2ing with 1099s and, working 9 to 5 in your office. They're going to come in and work 20 hours a week for you, or work 10 hours a week for you. And I see it as an untapped potential, actually. I mean, it sounds scary, but instead of fearing it, I think those leaders of the future can potentially use it as an opportunity.
And it's so important because we're really unleashing leadership here today.
Absolutely.
We are really unleashing leadership. And what we're trying to do at the Business Council of Westchester is help prepare the leaders that are here today in Westchester to develop the leaders of tomorrow. And Valerie, that's why we're so excited to have this working relationship with you, because we know that generational dynamics are always in play at work. So why do you think that Gen Z is having such a unique impact compared to previous generations?
I think things that leaders need to be prepared for are having conversations around mental health. I think flexibility, like it's hard to sort of put the genie back in the bottle. And so as we think about Gen Z and certainly younger millennials, this idea of flexibility, they're really kind of requirements, not necessarily nice to have. And I think that's what's driving this gig economy is I'd rather work 20 hours a week from wherever I want, or maybe I'll come in 20 hours in your office, but I want the other 20 hours to do what I want with it. They also bring very, very, more so than any other generation, some really strong expectations around purpose-driven work. Their values.
What does that mean, purpose-driven work?
Meaning, what's the purpose? What do you do? What does your company do? How do you add value to the world? And I think every company does that.
Value to the world, yes. But you have to communicate it all of the time.
Exactly. And you need to come in and say, look, if you make pencils, we don't make pencil. I don't make a pencil. I'm creating communication methods. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to look at is what's the value that what you bring into the world. And I think that companies forget that. Gen X didn't need that. We don't care. We're about money. Just, give us money and let us go. A little bit to millennials, but now you're Gen Z, and I see it as a secret weapon. That if you can tap in and speak about purpose all the time, you are going to have an advantage over other companies who aren't doing that.
Because people are going to feel good about what they're doing. They feel like they're making a contribution to their communities, to their world. They're feeding their souls also. Exactly.
And that's what this generation wants. And the last thing I would say about Gen Z is entrepreneurs. So they are 62% have already started or planned to start a business. And that number's only expected to grow. So this is my 13-year-old nieces, they're Gen Alpha now. They've got businesses already that they've had for years. And so it's just a really different mindset.
And are they starting a business to that be their ultimate goal, or are they starting a business to be doing something else on the side? Or what does that look like? Because I think some employers might feel uncomfortable. Oh, is the employee taking my time to run his or her business, right?
I think it's a very, very fair question, and why I always state that now, look, Gen X can blow off in the office looking at Facebook, or millennials can do that looking at Instagram. We can all do that doing other things. That's why it is critical as leaders today that we manage the results. It is not FaceTime. What I need is how much work should someone be getting accomplished in a week?
And the quality of the work.
Absolutely. Yeah, quality's got to be there. But the quantity and quality, you really got to know what that quantity is, because that's what I'm going to hold you to. Whether you're in the office, whether you're out of the office, regardless of where you're sitting, I'm going to hold you to that. So then I can see, are they blowing off doing something else? Either creating something in Roblox or on Facebook or on Instagram or on whatever.
Very, very interesting. Valerie, this has already been such an insightful conversation on leadership and general dynamics in the workplace. We're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. You're listening to Leadership Unleashed on the BCW Podcast Network. We'll be right back.
A lot goes into planning a birthday. For my daughter Cameron, it started with a stem cell transplant to cure her sickle cell disease. Yes, cure. Westchester Medical Center Health Network uses every technology, technique, and talented specialist to conquer diseases that could otherwise rob a child of childhood, helping my daughter and thousands of others at Maria Ferrari Children's Hospital. Happy birthday, Cameron.
Happy birthday.
WMC Health, advancing care here.
We're back on the BCW Podcast Network. I'm Marsha Gordon. I'm President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester. You're listening to Leadership Unleashed, and we're continuing our conversation on leadership that delivers results with keynote speaker, executive coach, and people development leader, Valerie Grubb. Valerie, it's an honor to have you with us today. We're seeing younger employees turn down jobs, actually turn down jobs, if a company's values don't align. How should leaders respond to that shift in expectations?
Well, I think just as you said, I think that you need to lead with values now, leading with what do you stand for, transparency around your ethics, around sustainability, inclusion. I know we may not like the term DEI, but I do know that folks want to be respected and want to be included. So lead with that. And it's really not about selling the role. It's really about proving cultural alignment. And by the way, you don't want them in there either. If they're going to roll in 6 months, you've wasted 6 months trying to train them. So really flush that out to begin with and make sure that they understand. But I do think that you got to think about those values, because we focus on the role instead of the value that the role brings. And if we can do that, we're really going to see whether or not this is going to be a great fit.
You know, just yesterday I had this experience. I co-chair the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council on behalf of Governor Hochul. And so we review many proposals. And this is a group of very hardworking volunteers, not Gen Zs, but you know, as we're doing it, it may be not tedious, but you're reviewing applications and finances and goals. And I took time at the beginning of the meeting, and I said, you know, I want to just stop for a minute and tell you I went to visit one of the communities that we funded. And I just the other day noticed the difference in that community. It's a small village, and there are a lot of people that live in that village, but the facades look different. There are all kinds of shops. I ate the most delicious scone I ever ate. And in the community center, I saw young people enjoying themselves and playing basketball. And then I saw senior citizens doing a senior citizens activity. And we had a little bit of something to do with it. So it's that values, it's that impact. I'm not patting myself on the back, believe me. But when
you're encouraging everybody.
We do lose sight in our day-to-day of work sometimes, because the book's got to get done, and invoices need to get paid, and speeches need to get written, and everything like that. What is the impact of every single organization that people are working in? So I'm so glad that you're saying that's even more important. And I think it's up to leaders, people leaders, as you say, to point out the impact periodically of what people are having. You also talk about mental health and flexibility. Keep coming up in workforce conversations. That's a shift, right? We never talked about mental health before.
Oh my goodness, you would never bring that up.
We would never bring that up. How can leaders address those needs without sacrificing performance? And how can leaders get more comfortable addressing that?
Well, I think we just have to remove the stigma. And I think the more that you normalize those conversations, the easier it becomes to have. And I always love to, anytime we talk about difficult conversations, I always suggest to folks to practice. If you've got an HR person, they're a perfect person to sit and practice so that it becomes a normal part of conversation. And, really also focusing on those support systems, about those managers, peers, resources, like making it comfortable for everyone to talk about that. And that's something that we as leaders, as people leaders, need to teach our managers how to not freak out about this if somebody says that they're having a mental breakdown or they need some mental resources or that they're burning out, and that they know what those, what do we have to offer? How can I address that? And then it just becomes a normal part of conversation, and people go about their lives and then come back.
I think we really started to talk about that during COVID when we did check in with people and say, how are you doing? And it's starting to become, but it's still something that not everyone is comfortable dealing with, or they don't know if it belongs in the workplace. So I want to repeat and just reinforce that mental health and flexibility are appropriate workforce conversations.
100%.
Great.
100%.
Great. And you also often say that no one generation has all the answers. What does great cross-generational leadership look like in practice?
I think it's really making sure that every voice is heard, that we ask everyone, not just those folks who have more seniority, that we don't just ask them, that we ask those younger employees as well, or the folks who are new into our organizations, that we include them in the conversations, because then it becomes, again, then everybody's valued and everybody is included. And it doesn't mean that I have to take their ideas, but by listening, I can come in and say, I heard you. It's a great idea. Here's what we're going to do instead, and this is why. Back to getting people on board with the direction that we're taking, but at least I listened to them.
Very important. Listening is very important, and active listening. Really
yes, exactly.
Caring. Yes.
I had a manager that used to ask my opinion, and he would never take it, never, ever took my advice. And finally, I just one day said, you don't need to ask me. I know you read that. I know you read that in a book that's a leadership thing, but if you don't really listen, it doesn't really matter.
That's a very
doing
good
more
thing
harm
to say.
than good.
Yes, that's a very good thing to say. You communicated that very clearly.
Yes, I did.
Yes. If you had to name the number one leadership misstep you see managers making with younger workers, what would that be?
Oh my goodness, that's a really hard to narrow it down to one. I have to say micromanaging, probably I'd put at the top of the list versus empowering. And I know that's, empowering is kind of a buzzword, but it's really important, and there's a big difference. And I see that with leadership in general. The moment you start to micromanage anybody of any age, they're checking out because you're holding on to the responsibility. And so it's just, we've got to figure out what that looks like and let people make mistakes and then go, what'd you learn and what are you going to do differently?
And how do people change that habit of micromanaging or managing in that way or leading or, quote, leading in that way?
I think you just have to brute force yourself. But what I say is have a plan. If I'm giving a project to you, I'm going to come in and say, all right, here's the project. What decisions can I allow you to make? Where can I allow you to potentially fail?
Mm-hmm. And it's okay to fail.
Exactly, because that's where you learn. That's in the learning. What did you learn? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to do now? And remember, we did that. We failed. Now, don't let them hit the green button that they transfer all the money.
Right.
Or whatever,
Right.
Launch the codes or whatever, launch the rockets. But my goodness, let people fail and then say, what'd you learn? What are you going to do differently? And if we can make a plan to know we're going to do that, I think that can help us start to let go. And then outside of that, I always just say it's just brute force. You have to brute force yourself to let go.
Yes, absolutely. Valerie, thank you for sharing your actionable leadership insights. We're going to take one more short break, but when we return, we'll dive deeper into how leaders can bridge generational gaps and strengthen the skills that matter most in today's very fast-changing, tech-driven workplace. Stay with us. This is Leadership Unleashed on the BCW Podcast Network.
This is the coming home you dream about.
But getting here was unimaginable.
At 25 weeks, I was hemorrhaging badly, losing amniotic fluid. Fortunately, I was taken to Westchester Medical Center, where they have the most advanced care in the Hudson Valley for high-risk pregnancies and premature babies. And because we were there, now we're here.
WMC Health, advancing care here.
Welcome back to the BCW Podcast Network. This is Leadership Unleashed, and we're back with Valerie Grubb, keynote speaker, executive coach, and people development leader. And Valerie, even in our conversation today on this podcast, I feel like I'm being developed, and I appreciate it. And I thank you for doing that because we're all in positions where we're leading people of different generations and we're leading a community forward. So the advice you're providing is so important. What's a simple leadership move someone could make tomorrow? I want to show that we can all do this, that would immediately help them connect better across generations.
I would certainly say at the top of the list would be sharing the why behind a task. And if you can, linking it to purpose, because that helps to build trust. It builds commitment. It builds accountability if I'm giving the why behind where we do things. And then don't mind if they come back and say, well, I don't understand, or I'm not seeing why this is important, and not getting mad about that and really engaging in a conversation about even things that seem not as interesting or more routine, that we need to do them, and here's why. I just feel like we just tell people to do stuff because we're busy, not because we're being mean, but just we've got a lot to do. So I need you to go do this. If I can hold and take the time, tell the why, and then ask, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about doing this project? How do you feel about this deadline?
And what if people say, I don't feel good about this project, or this deadline is not doable?
Perfect. That's exactly what I want to hear from them, because I'm going to come in and say, tell me more. Why do you not feel good about it?
That's the key, is to say, tell me more.
Exactly. Because I want to know that, because if they're not excited about it, they're not going to do it, or they're going to do a half job. They're not going to really, get into it and make sure that it's done right. So I need to clarify any concerns they have about what that project is. And if they don't think they can get it done in time, I'm going to get into, as a leader, tell me what's holding you back. How can I help you to get everything accomplished? And that's part of my job.
It sounds like the art of questioning is also very important.
100%. I ask more questions. I really do more asking questions than telling, because that's where I find out whether or not this is going to get done and get done how I need it.
That's a very good lesson. That's a very good lesson. I'm going to think about that more, because questioning and asking questions and really understand is the way to really understand the needs of your team.
Yeah.
It's very important.
And you said it before, it's about listening. You can't ask questions if I don't listen.
And especially in these days of technology, automation, and AI, which are transforming work faster than ever, what skills should leaders double down on developing right now?
Great question. I would certainly say emotional intelligence and trust building to inspire and motivate and influence folks. Because again, the AI is going to help you with decision making and getting agility in decision making. It's a great tool to partner with that. So we need the people skills behind it. As a leader, that's where we want to double down on, I think, because the machines are going to help us. The machines are going to help us with decision making, but I need that critical thinking. I need the emotional intelligence skills, and I need that strategic thinking, because the machine can only do so much. I need to take that data and then be able to see, what are we going to do with that? What are we going to do to position our companies for continued success and continued thriving? And that's the skills that we need, is that strategy, the strategy with the data. But at the same time, I got to bring my people along. So doggone it, I got to build up EQ too. I got to get that emotional intelligence in there.
Where does coaching come into all this? I know you're an executive coach as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes, some people learn better with training, in a training class, 10 or 20 people in there that they can bounce ideas off of and talk about, well, I'm having this challenge. What are you doing? But I think a lot of times with more senior leaders, that doesn't really work for them, and they need individual coaching. And I need help with this exact problem. Help me figure this out. And I think also that's a matter of time, that they just don't have the time to sit in a class that's 4 hours to where they can do an hour every 2 weeks and help me solve this exact problem I'm having right here. And I just find it's faster.
But this is a clear example of where executive coaching can really help somebody who's not used to this type of leadership skill gain the leadership skill.
100%.
It's very important. So if you could give leaders one piece of advice to future-proof their leadership, what would it be?
I'm going to go back to the questions and just say lead with curiosity. Lead with curiosity. If your employees are struggling, how can I help you? What do you need in order to be successful?
Very important. And just let me ask you a question. How do you get your employees to say, I'm struggling, I need some help, and that be okay? Set a culture that's okay.
Trust. You have to build trust, and you have to have, I picked one of my strongest leaders who worked for me at Oxygen, and I had him in front of the group in a team meeting say he's struggling and that he needed help. So I always used him as a guinea pig, and I didn't slaughter him, and I said it's okay, and I helped to solve the issue in front of people. And then everybody goes, wow, if Anthony can say that, maybe I can too. And it became a norm to come back.
Valerie, you are amazing. Can people find you on where can people find you now that we've gotten a little taste of Valerie Grubb and the great advice you're giving so many businesses across the country on leadership?
Well, I am at valgrubb.com. I'm at vgrubb@valgrubb.com, and then my website is valgrubb.com as well. And I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, all that sort of good stuff. So.
Wonderful. And everyone should connect with you because there is so much to be learned from you. And you are so motivational to so many. And we thank you so much for everything that you've done. Thank you for joining us today. Your insights on connecting across generations, understanding what truly motivates today's workforce, and building the skills leaders need to succeed in a rapidly changing workplace are truly inspiring. It's clear that great leaders aren't just managing teams, right? They're creating environments where every generation can contribute, can innovate, and thrive. So, Valerie, thank you so much. And thank you again to Westchester Medical Center for their great support, and to our listeners for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Leadership Unleashed.
Be sure to check out the BCW Podcast Network's expansive lineup of shows: Leadership Unleashed, What's Trending, Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, The Member Spotlight, and Nonprofit Voices of Impact. The Business Council of Westchester is the county's largest business membership organization focusing on economic development and advocacy. With over 1,100 members, it is our mission to work for the profitability of our members and the prosperity of the Westchester community. To learn more, go to thebcw.org.